Hey guys, how are you? Welcome back to my channel. It's me, Steven, and Buddy. Hey guys, how are you? Welcome back to my channel. It's me and Buddy. Eleanor is somewhere over there. Hi, how are you? So today was a very exciting day for me. I went to a pottery studio for the first time in a very long time. It's been years since I've touched clay. In fact, I think the last time I touched clay was May of 2016. Hi, where do you want to go? Where do you want to go? Are you stuck? Where do you want to go? So it's been a long time. It's been May of 2016. That was the last time I touched clay. And today is February 15th of 2022. So it's been a long time. I walked into the studio a little anxious because I wasn't quite sure. What, buddy, you're going to knock something else over. I wasn't quite sure what to expect. Was I even able to remember how to center clay? You know, I wasn't even sure. But in the end, it all turned out very well. So it all turned out fine. It all turned out great, promise. So in fact, I'm going to share with you a couple clips. One is of the three pieces that lived. Is that like a fairy tale? The three pots that lived. I'll show you the three pieces that I finally ended up throwing today, as well as a little clip of my little studio storage space, which is about this big. Thank goodness we're allowed to take pieces home and work on them. If we have to do any decorating or altering or anything like that, we can actually work on them here at the house. I have a second bathroom that I'm not using, so I'm going to turn that little second bathroom into like a little mini pottery studio. Sorry for the lighting, I've got a TV right in front of me. So I'm very excited about having this little bathroom as my little mini studio at the house. But in this video, I figured I would share with you a little bit about my history with clay. It's a very important part of my life and I think my development. And I've shared with you guys videos about my dentures, my ex-husband, my recovery from alcohol and drugs, my mother dying, my cats, my house. I've shared with you videos about every topic of my life, every facet of my life. And I'm not quite sure why I've never really talked about clay as much as I would like to. But in this video, we'll talk a little bit about my history with clay, things I've learned about myself working with clay, because it's a pretty significant, some life skills that I think were really significant to my development as a person. And then hopefully a little bit about my goals in terms of working with clay. I also want to show you some of my favorite tools. I have this really fancy tool bag I got. I want to show you some of my favorite tools. That means about 10 people will find this interesting enough to watch. So if this so far, the description does not sound like this is your video, that's okay. I've got 500 and some odd other videos for you to watch, and I'll be filming another video very soon. I have a long layover in Newark, which means I'll be spending some time in New York City on Thursday. So I'll film a video about that as well. But let's talk about my history with clay. So for me, clay started in high school. I was overweight and what you would call super duper wow, he's so gay. And apparently every one of my classmates knew I was gay, but I wasn't quite so aware of my special quality, and it made me to be a very slow-moving and large target for a lot of bullying. And so high school was very unpleasant. I hated pretty much every minute of high school, but I had one art teacher named Miss Vanessa, who was a very safe, welcoming person, and her classroom was my haven in high school. It's a public school, an art classroom, didn't have that many supplies. So we spent most of our class recycling clay. And to recycle clay is absolute misery. She had this gigantic plastic trash can, gigantic, and it was just full to the top of water and bits of broken down clay. And so you had to lift, armloads of this mush. It was like mush, and you'd slap it onto a plaster table and just move it around until the plaster absorbed water, and it eventually became dense enough for you to actually to work with. And most of your class was spent recycling clay. So we didn't learn a lot about pottery in high school. But later on in junior college, I went to CCRI in Lincoln, Rhode Island. We had a pottery studio, and I took some pottery classes. And once again, that became my safe place. That was my haven, and I would spend hours and hours and hours in that studio. And it was a safe place for me to be me and not have to worry about how I spoke. Because there was a bunch of people for some reason that just loved to hear the lisp, the S's, that pottery studio was a safe, quiet place for me, and I loved it. And I was welcome there. I was equal to everyone in the room, and it was just great. So that was wonderful while school lasted. I couldn't afford it, and I was a rotten student, and I dropped out. Thank goodness, being a flight attendant. Thank God you don't need a diploma, a degree to be a flight attendant. Thank goodness. But flash forward. I think it's late 2013. I took a cruise, and I love me a cruise. And I met some people, met some guys that became lifelong friends, and I'll forever be grateful for them. They've definitely saved me a number of times. But I met these two guys in particular, Keith and Glenn, and they're potters. And they were a couple. They've been married, and they've been together for 30 years at that time. And at this point, it's going to get a little bit colorful. You can judge all you'd like. Feel free to write a comment in the section below. If you write a nasty comment or something that's unpleasant, I will be deleting it, so feel free. I ended up being in a relationship with this couple. I know. It's more common than you think. And polyamorous relationships, that's what they're called, are very difficult at the best. But we had this long distance relationship, which just makes it all the worse. But they were potters. They're both working in clay. In fact, Glenn has been making pottery for 40 years now. He's a master potter. He's a rotten boyfriend, but he's a master potter. And at the time, I would do anything to make you love me. If I loved you, I would do anything. You want me to be purple? Okay, I'm purple. And they're both potters. So I thought, you know what? I love pottery. I love clay. I have such warm memories of those hours spent in the clay studios in high school and in college. So I took some pottery classes with Daryl Finnegan in Boston, Massachusetts. If you happen to be in Boston and you want to take clay classes with an amazing person and a great instructor, Daryl Finnegan, right in the South End. He's got a great little studio. So I started taking classes with Daryl, and he, for the most part, just let us do what we had to do with occasional instruction. I did not take instruction easily or well. I always take it very personally, which is a life lesson you have to learn as you get older. Plus, it's as an artist, you have to remain teachable. I had a hard time with that, which probably helped my relationship die all the faster, because that relationship with those two guys did not last long. But before it collapsed, I gave up everything and I moved from Boston down to Florida to live with my boyfriends. It was a magical time. That Christmas, not that this video is about them, but that Christmas, they gave me a copy of their wedding band, because that's what it was like. That was us. We were a family to us. And it didn't last long, though, because it's a difficult relationship. And I'm a difficult person to be in a relationship with, apparently. I was with them for almost 4 months, and every single day we sat down for hours and hours and hours and threw pots all day long. It was glorious. I was basking in what I felt at the time was love. It ended up not being that. But I was also in the middle of a full studio with every tool I could possibly imagine, a wheel of my own, kilns to fire all my work in. It was more than I could potentially have ever hoped, because I had become so in love with working with clay. It taught me so much about myself, and it gave me some, really polished some life lessons that came in handy later on in life. So some of those lessons, the ability to make mistakes, and that's something I think as you get older, you have to learn how to be at peace with making mistakes, and learning from those mistakes, whether it be in a relationship or clay. And mistakes are valuable. They really are valuable. If you are familiar with Brene Brown, watch some YouTube videos about her feelings about making mistakes, and it's a really valuable skill. And as a potter, you have to be able to accept that something's not working, cut it off the wheel. It's a waste of time to fix a pot on the wheel if it's off center, if you've got air bubbles everywhere. Just cut it off the wheel, move on, but with the knowledge of what went wrong the first time, so you can kind of, fix your mistakes. So make mistakes. I had to learn how to make mistakes and be okay with it and celebrate them to a degree. One of my biggest challenges in life is that I'm terribly unfocused. I am completely unfocused, and speaking of, my TV is driving me crazy. I lack focus in many ways. And not a surprise to you guys, right? If you've watched my channel, my videos are all over the place. Imagine what's happening inside my mind, right? But when you're working with clay, it's crazy. When you're working with clay, especially on a wheel, you have to think. You have your foot pedal, which is controlling the speed of the wheel. You've got the clay, which is mush, right? You've got to use your hands and very particular hand movements and gestures, always connecting, always supporting, and moving your hands at the same speed as the wheel, for example. And you have to make sure that the clay is lubricated enough with water, but not so lubricated as to saturate the clay with too much water. I work with porcelain usually, and porcelain, I like to call porcelain a cheap date. It doesn't take that many drinks to get action to happen. With porcelain, if you use too much water, the clay gets very sloppy and floppy, much like a date that's cheap. I'm going to use that again. So I had to learn. You have to learn how to handle the speed of the wheel, how to keep that and change it to the needs of the clay, not your needs, the needs of the clay. Moving that clay up, focusing on every single micron of your hands and fingers and positioning of them, and what's the clay doing? What does it want to do? And there's just so many variables. You have to learn how to laser focus and just be able to really, really be in the moment and not worry about anything else. And it's hard. It's so hard, but I had to learn how to focus, and it's really been a skill that I've been able to use in other aspects of my life. So it's funny, the three places I've learned the most about being the person I've always wanted to be is in recovery, being a cat dad, because you learn a lot about yourself being the dad to some cats, and pottery. I've just learned so many life lessons that it's just been amazing. I spent almost 4 months throwing pots every single day in that garage, in that studio that we had. The relationship ended. It died in a very spectacular fashion. I may talk about it one day, but I'm still upset about it. I'm still upset about it. But that relationship ended, but so did my access to a kiln and a pot and a wheel and clay and blah, blah, blah. And then shortly after, I ended up living in a minivan, which is not really conducive to working with clay either. So flash forward, here I am. It's 2022. I'm a flight attendant with a schedule that allows me a lot of free time. And now I'm senior enough in my job where I actually can kind of bid for schedules that allow me time to actually go to a regular classroom setting or a studio setting. And it just feels like the biggest luxury. So I've wanted to get back into clay, but I've been afraid. I've been afraid to go back to it because it's been so long. I don't like, I don't, historically, won't do something if I know I'm going to fail. And that goes back to the lesson. You have to be able to make mistakes and be okay with it and learn from it, if not celebrate those mistakes for those reasons. So I faced my anxieties and my fears, and I bit the bullet, and I joined this clay studio here in Las Vegas. And so there goes my story. My hopes are to be able to bid for a schedule next month that would allow me to have access to the classes and not just the independent studio time, because I really do need direction at this point. Later on down the road, I'll really just appreciate having some free time without any classwork assignment. You know, just go in and throw like a dozen mugs or something. So that's my hope. Eventually, I would like to be able to make enough stuff to be successful and have nice enough pots that people will buy them, and that will help pay for my studio time and so on. And it also has a nice feeling when someone buys your pots. But there you go. So there you go. There's the whole story. I know it's been 15 minutes of me talking about me, my favorite topic. So I'm going to show you next. I'm going to show you the bag I bought, my Pottery tool bag, and some of my favorite tools. All right, so I'll show you those in a moment. Hey, look who came to visit. Look who came to visit. She's desperately looking for a way to get down from my lap. Okay, one little hug. One little hug. Okay, you can go now. She walked too close to me just for a moment, and I was able to grab her. All right, so I'm going to show you my tool bag that I got. I got it at Lowe's. I've looked everywhere and at every bag, but I found this at Lowe's. It's by Cobalt, and it's got pockets all around the sides for all sorts of stuff. And on the inside, it's got little loops and pockets, as you can see, on all sides. So, and it's not as big as it looks, but it's small enough to fit next to my wheel, and I can put it on my shelf or in my car. It's not like a giant tool bag, and but it holds pretty much everything that I could possibly ever need for clay. So I'll show you some of my favorite tools, and not every single one of them, but I'll show you some of my favorite tools. Okay, in no particular order, I'll show you my favorite tools. So these are just regular NKM ribs. They're just kind of boring little ribs. Instead, what I usually use are these by a company called Xiem, X-I-E-M, I think. They're very, very useful. They're great shapes. They're nice and smooth in the hand. The little hole inside makes it easy to hold on to it. They float in your bucket. They float in your water bucket, which is like great. So you're not fishing around for your ribs. These are ribs I also use all the time, or used to use all the time, but I will use in the future. They're recognizable. If you're a potter, you know you all have these. They're little red silicone soft ribs by Cheryl Mud Tools. I have the little baby red one. I think I may have left it at the studio. All right, that means it's gone. But these are, I'll get another one. They're super, super useful for 1,000 things. These little red ribs are a must-have. These are similar ribs. They're just a little bit more firm. They're more plastic than silicone. These are amaze balls. Again, no particular order. A sure something, I forget what this is called, but it's a little rasp that's usually used to shape drywall or cut drywall, finish their edges. And it's amazing for trimming clay, especially when you're trying to form leather hard clay. This is Sureform. That's what it's called. Thanks. I knew somebody out there said it. Sureform. These are two of my favorite NKM ribs. This is the W12B, which is great for bowls, platters, laying cylinders down to create bowls from cylinders. And this is one, I honestly used it like twice. I'll keep it forever, but I've used it like twice. This is the W22. This is great for laying down really, really large bowls, or to lay down like a platter that you've thrown, or a plate. This would be really handy. Again, I've only used it like twice, but with no great success. This is a pretty typical clay knife. I don't even know who made it, but this is my favorite clay knife. I can do a lot with this. It's pretty useful, and it's very nice in the hand. I don't even know who made it. This is just a little drafting triangle that I found at an art supply store. I use it like a rib, but a straight edge to sort of straighten out the wall of a cylinder to make a mug, or do something with it. I can also use it to undercut for a bowl on the sides, like to create sort of an undercut under the piece. Throw that in the bag. Oh, my favorite tools. This is also, I'm addicted to Cheryl mud tools, but I think everyone is. Just Google mud tools and you'll see what I'm talking about. This is called a bull's tongue. It's a play on a very ancient pottery tool. But you use this, again, like you put this in the bottom so you can help use this to throw, to widen out a bowl. You can help lay a cylinder down into a bowl. You can do a whole bunch with this. And this is one of my favorite tools to use, but I have to be a little bit more advanced in my skills than I am right now to use this easily. This is also a mud tool, I think, by Cheryl Mud Tools. But you use this end or the smaller end to carve or facet leather hard clay. So if you want to create some fluting down the side of a pot, or just carve away a little facets randomly, this is a really handy tool. It's a little rusty. I hope that doesn't pose a problem in the future. This is a pair of calipers, which are really, really useful. So here I can measure the interior or exterior of a pot that I'm throwing. If I want to make a lid for the same pot, well, I would use this to measure the inside, but I could flip it around and the same measurement is translated here, so I can create the lid and have those measurements that I would need. So it's a really amazing tool. This is the big version. There's a shorter version I want, but I have this and it works. It's just big. This is very useful. One of my other favorite tools, this is a regular wire, and this is like Kemper tools. Everyone has one of these. Every potter's studio has those. This is one, again, by Mud Tools, where it's a ergonomically designed handle. It's not as long as those wires are, so you don't have to wrap it around your fingers to pull it under a piece of clay. And this wire is thicker than the other one. This is a heavy duty one. I really want to make sure I've got some separation from the clay off the wheel head, or if I'm cutting a block off of a bag of clay. And the handle is so much more comfortable than the wooden toggles. Favorite tool, this is a scraper. I think that's used more for screen printing than it is for clay, but where some people use credit cards to help them smooth out as a rib, this is much better sized for me. I can use it as a rib to straighten the side of a pot again. I can smooth a slab out with it. Really handy. Metal ribs, it's hard to say they're your favorite tool. These I just bought. I've never used them before, but I've always wanted them. I chose this as a good reason to buy them. They're called decorating discs. This is with even numbers and odd numbers. So if I want to design or create a pattern around a pot, I can use these. See the little holes? Does anyone remember spirographs, where you put the pencil in the hole and move it around? Well, here you put the decorating disc down, and say you wanted 10 lines. You wanted to create a pattern that had 10 spokes around it. There is, you can see a 10 here, a 10 here, a 10 here, a 10 here. And you could put your pen tool through and mark where your spokes of your design might go. So you can keep some regular patterns. This is odd and this is even. $20 for these two discs, but I think they're going to be very useful in the future. So I'm happy to pay it. Technically this is a knife used for more whittling, I think, for wood and balsa and stuff like that. But I thought it would be a great little clay knife, and I got this at Desert Art Supply. I really like this little handle end here. So that's a little knife I'll use. Probably when working with slabs. These are tools that are, one is a kitchen tool. This is typically called a spurtle of all things, worst name ever. But I could use this to paddle clay, and you do that with certain techniques. So I would use this as a paddle more than I would for stirring or mixing. And I just like the shape a lot, and I think that'll be great for paddling clay. This is, you might recognize this if you've painted your own house. This is an edger, so you would put this against a flat edge if you're trying to, say, paint trim or something in your house. So you could paint, and this would stop you from painting whatever surface is on this side of the, I haven't used it yet for clay, but I imagine this would be a lot of fun for smoothing out slabs. I don't know why I'm talking so fast. My videos are already too long, so I should take my time. But this is going to be great, I think, for slabs. I could cut with it. I don't know. I could probably do all sorts of stuff. And if it doesn't end up being worth my time, I'll just take it out of my tool bag. And then inside this little box, I have a couple of my favorite tools. This is a score, so that's by Zien, but it's a little scoring tool. See the those little stabby things. So you use that to score clay and add slip, and then you can join pieces. But this is really nice in that this stuff, rather than catching under your fingernails, which can happen, you just close it and those little stabby bits are put away. This is a little thing that I adore, and I've somehow made a big crunch in it, but I've had this for a long time. And you'd use this to help smooth out little holes. Say you're making a teapot, or little holes in maybe an ornament to hang it. You'd use this to help smooth out the holes or openings that you've made. A little cat stamp that I don't know when I'll ever use. What else is my favorite? There's a little Sgraffito tool by Kemper. My dream is to get these diamond core things, but they're like $150. This is just a little Kemper stylus here, but I usually sign my work with this when the clay is almost bone dry, and that is great. And the last thing I think I'll show you is they're called lady fingers, made by Kemper. I've never seen anybody else make them, but this is what a regular pin tool looks like. Let me show you the regular pin tool. Let me find it. What's that? All right, so this is a real normal pin tool that you would use, and you use a pin tool all the time. I mean, for everything. So that's a normal pin tool in like a stainless handle. This is a Kemper mud tool and a little bamboo stick here, which is a little bit thinner. Do you see how thin that is compared to this one? So if you're cutting clay off at the edge of a pot, the tip of a pot, or if you're trying to cut the apron of a pot off at the bottom, this one's very flexible. You can put it down against the wheel head as it's turning, and then just help lift off that apron from the bottom of your pot. So this one's really flexible and pretty easy to use. This one's great for like manual tools or like light carving. You could do that. But these are called lady fingers. Where's that stylus again? Oh, hold on one sec. All right, found it. So this is that thinner needle tool by Kemper. Now these are also by Kemper, and they're called lady fingers. I've never seen these anywhere else, but it is. Do you see it? Can you even see that? It's like as wide as a hair. It's super skinny. See that compared to the thinner wire tool? And this one has like little burrs on the end of it. So if I want to go in and cut maybe fresh clay that's soft, where this needle tool might drag through the clay, creating lots of burrs and kind of pull clay if it was wet, this might go right through that wet clay nice and easily without causing too much of a a wake or a trail, you know. I'm not quite sure if it would work in leather hard clay, but I'll find out. I've got 3 of them, so because they're very thin little nail things, and I don't want them to break very easily. I think those are my favorite tools. I have a whole bunch of other tools that are kind of boring and not worth anybody's time, but I have to have them, so there you go. And now that you've suffered all of that, thank you so much for your patience. I'm going to show you those 2 clips of my that I took at the studio. Have fun. Okay. My first piece thrown in 5 years. It's 4.5 inches tall, 7 inches across. It's supposed to be a ramen bowl, but I have an air bubble in there, so I'm just going to cut the thing off the wheel and start over. Oh. Okay, well, it took me 3 hours, but I threw that one, and that one, and that one. The assignment is to throw.
Here's the real thing, right?
What?
When I look at the rims, they look pretty damn even.
Oh, good.
Right?
Yeah. So I know they weren't so exciting, those bowls, but I was really pleased with them. I mean, it had been over 5 years since I threw anything, so I was pretty satisfied with the form. I prefer a bowl to be a little bit more like open like this. His direction, or the class project, is more like of a more vertical form. So that's what I made. Friday night I'll have time to do what I want to do and just practice without having to worry about other people looking at it and judging it and blah blah blah. But if I can, I'll film that. And until then, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments that are polite, leave one below, and I will talk to you later. All right? Fly safe. Bye.